welcome to Fitness Casual. We help you ditch diets and build habits, no matter how busy you are. I'm Andrew Hayes, and with me is the super strong Kat Best.
Hello, hello.
How's it going? Did you work out today yet?
I did. I had a really good workout today, actually. Even in my notes, I wrote really good workout. Felt great. Like I got a little pump going in my biceps that I haven't had in however many months. Like I'm actually to a point where I can get my strength back up from my surgery. So that's been like really fun to actually be able to like do stuff again. It's been wonderful.
Good for you. I'm glad you feel good. As you know, as we all know in the space, RPE, rate of perceived exertion, is one of the best measures of an effective workout routine. It's just, did it feel hard? So that's great. I'm glad you feel good. What is your least favorite exercise in the gym?
I really don't like squatting patterns in general, so I'll say my least favorite would be a walking lunge. I think it's also the hardest exercise. If you don't think walking lunges are hard, then you are not using heavy enough weight, because they are, when you are doing like 10 reps on each side, it's also like cardio. Your heart rate is up, your legs are jello, you're barely making it through the last few reps.
Hard to breathe because you're bending down.
Oh.
And yeah.
But because it's my least favorite, I also love when I do it and I crush it and I get really proud of myself. But also I get so sore. Walking lunges cause like the most insane soreness for me. So that's like, I don't like being sore. I'm actually someone like when I'm sore, I'm kind of like, no, because it kind of messes up like other things. But soreness is also part of like working hard, doing something different. So to be expected, just don't want it to be too much, too often, but it'll definitely happen if you're actually trying to build muscle.
And you're doing this with weights, and are they racked on your shoulder or at your side, or what is that?
I hold them down at my side.
At your side, okay.
Yeah, down at my side. I try to do a slightly longer stride so I get like a good stretch of the back hip a little bit. I think that feels really good. But a Bulgarian split squat is also pretty similar. I haven't done a barbell back squat in years, but I do deep, like really deep slant board goblet squats, like knees really bent. So that's kind of what I do lately. But I'm also trying to keep my mobility on point for jiu-jitsu. So that's where I can't go too heavy or try to get too strong, because then I'll break down and won't be able to move or flow nicely on the mats. So it's like a fine line between both of those things. But right now I'm definitely trying to build muscle. I'm actively like pushing myself, eating enough. Like it's definitely a very focused goal of mine currently, where in the past it was kind of like I just want to maintain or whatever. I want to be able to do jiu-jitsu, but now I'm like I need to build. Like that's what I'm doing.
Great. And I bet a lot of people have similar goals, which is why they're listening to this. So we will cover how to do that today. I'm also on a hypertrophy plan with my coach, Kat, and my least favorite exercise, and I didn't tell you this because I didn't want to prime you, is actually in our programming, and it's a plank.
Oh.
I hate planks, and you make me do them every week, and I just feel like, I'm sure so many people resonate with this, I just feel like time stands still, you know, because there's very few movements that I do that are time-based. I usually am doing reps or something along those lines, and I just feel like 45 seconds, 60 seconds, and now we're doing weighted. Kat, thank you. It's just like, oh my God.
It's a long
why does a
time.
second feel like a minute? So it's an incredibly functional movement. The military just got rid of crunches and sit-ups, as they should, as part of their fitness test, and they put in planks. It's incredibly functional. So it's important that I do it. So I'm just joking. Of course, thank you for writing it for me, but I do hate them. I probably wouldn't do it on my own.
I hate renegade rows. You just like gave me like renegade rows suck. They're so hard. They're so hard. Those are the absolute worst. Yeah, but holding a plank is like the longest 30 seconds ever. And my, as a trainer, philosophy is if you can hold a plank for a minute, you need to either add load or do something to make it harder, because no one needs to hold a plank longer than a minute. Like we're not in a competition, but that just means you need to make it harder. You know, and also I see plank form all the time at the gym. People have saggy backs. They're barely hanging on there. And that I wouldn't even call a real plank. So you need to look up like the proper form if you're curious of how to like do a real plank, of like scooping your hips, the ab contraction. Like if you're doing it right, like 30 seconds is really hard.
Yeah, squeeze. Yeah, it shouldn't. It's all those like dead bug. What else do we often give our clients? Bird dog, planks. These are the ones that if you do them wrong, they're easy.
Yeah.
So
Bridges
that's a
even.
good tell.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are going to talk about everything you need to know, get rid of all the noise to actually do resistance training. But it's really important to start this off with goal setting, which is something that we do all the time with our clients. And even on this podcast, we talk about the importance of knowing where you're going. And this is one of those ones that I think so many people just start or think they need to start without actually understanding where are they trying to go. So let's start with some goal setting and how this might actually fit into your routine, if at all.
Yeah, you need to know why you want to build muscle. I would say 95% of our clients have a goal, like when they fill out their form, to build muscle. And then when we see an action of how many of them actually do what it takes to build muscle, that drops off much more. So I think a lot of people like the idea of building muscle. We understand now why muscle is important. Of course, there are things with like women being afraid of the gym, that exists, but I think the understanding why it's important is not up for debate anymore. Everyone understands. But the reason why has to be unique to you. And it can't just be to be healthy. I think that's a really rough one to actually put into action. Body recomposition, that's a big one. So I'll say, like, I'm speaking to the women here. If you want to change the shape of your body, you need to lift weights. It can maybe tone up your shoulders, shrink your waist a little bit, build up your glutes, build the legs, and that can create a completely different body shape than you've had before. Whereas if you are just dieting and doing a bunch of cardio, you kind of can turn into just a smaller version of what you currently look like. But a lot of women are looking for an actual change of how their body shape is, or men to like build the chest, all that stuff. So that's where building muscle actually is like your ticket to changing your body shape. And for me, that was a big motivator when I first started lifting. I still didn't really understand it all that much, but I did want to change my body shape. I did not want to be just a leaner version of what I was. I was like, I actively want to build my glutes, tone up my shoulders. Like those were things I was looking for. Build the lats. Like a lot of women don't think about their back, but you'd be amazed what like a nice like sculpted back really changes the body. So that could be one. And then keeping up with your kids, like that could be another reason you want to build muscle. If you want to do activities with them, if you want to be able to like get on the floor and get back up like fast and have strength there, that could be another like deeper meaning as far as a motivator. And I think building strength, that's also one I hear a lot, which I think is great. I think it's also wonderful for women who want to be strong. But that's a deep internal motivator because there's nothing like external about being strong that's all that great. Maybe you can carry the groceries in all by yourself. Maybe you can like do other things. Like if you're moving, that's where I'm like, I'm so strong. This is great. I can pick things up. But otherwise, day to day, being strong is hard to really motivate you to get you to go to the gym. But if you have, like for me, like strength and confidence go hand in hand. And back in the day when I used to lift like super heavy, I don't anymore, but I used to like want to build my deadlift as strong as possible. That was my motivator, and it made me feel really good once I hit those targets. But that's not for everybody, and I think a lot of people actually don't care about strength. It's just maybe they want to be strong enough so they don't feel really weak. But as far as like getting stronger, maybe people don't actually care as much. But I think all of this just goes to say, you need to know why you want to build muscle. Bone density, that's a really good one I hear from people. I think someone also, if a woman does a bunch of cardio, you could have, your bones could be at risk. If you're underweight, that could be at risk. Nothing worse than if you're overweight and your bones are not healthy. Like that's a recipe for disaster. So, if you think of it from just that perspective, or reducing injury, like those are really good reasons. And it's okay if your intent is purely aesthetic. I think that's totally fine, but you just have to really understand what building muscle then takes, because it's not easy. It's really not easy.
And one of the hardest things about building muscle is, and this is for women, but for everybody, is you have to stop looking at your scale. Yeah. And so many people are like, it's okay, I understand. And I'm not trying to criticize anyone. I'm just trying to make this point very clear, which is like, we hear clients all the time say they don't care about their weight, and then they do. Yeah. And it's really hard to get stronger and or to build muscle and also look at the scale on a weekly basis and care which direction it's going. And so you have to make it's okay if you're not ready for that. But that's, again, like back to your goals, is like, is that number on the scale really important to you, and like the size of your waist really important to you? Then maybe it's not the right time to build your glutes
Yeah.
because you're probably not going to drop a size. You're probably going to eat more food than you're used to, you know? So it's important to align on your goals, and it's okay. You just have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole lose fat, build muscle gets a little dicey, because you can, in theory, do that if you're really new to weightlifting. If you've never weightlifted before, you could potentially lose fat and build muscle at the same time. But the rate of building muscle is so slow. So if you gain 5 pounds in 1 week, that's not muscle. That's going to be water. But a lot of people are like, oh, maybe it's the muscle. Maybe, or maybe your workout increased the muscle glycogen, you retained water, but building muscle is such a slow process. It's like a half a pound every few weeks to months. Like, it's for women, it's very slow. For men, a little faster, but still quite slow. But to gain every like half pound of muscle, you have to gain fat too. For the most part, your fat gain should be minimal. Like, we're not trying to do a dirty bulk here where you eat a lot of junk food to get as big as possible, because that does have like health side effects, I would say. But, you might need to accept that you do need to gain a little bit of fat in order to build muscle, because to build muscle, you need to be eating enough. And you need to at least be eating at maintenance, but a little bit of a surplus is ideal. But, for a lot of women, they don't even come close to eating at maintenance at any point in their life. It's either a really low calorie diet or binge eating on the weekend, and there's no in between. So that's a really important factor. Like me, I am so far out of newbie gains territory that for me to now try to build muscle and also like recover from my recent surgery, like I need to eat a lot more. And yeah, I watch the scale go up like each week. It's like a little higher, and sometimes it's really rough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I have like really bad days, but ultimately, like, I know what I'm doing. I logically understand. So I just keep going with it. And then I have days where I'm like feeling strong. Like today, like I told you, I felt great in the gym. Like, that's not going to happen if I'm not eating enough and I'm not training hard. Like, I'm not going to have those highs. So yeah, the scale stuff is really hard, but I do think, it's part of the process is also accepting that. I think avoiding the scale is fine for some people, but then when you hop on the scale 3 months later and you're up like 5 to 10 pounds, you may be really shocked and then go backwards. Mm-hmm. I'm going to diet. What the hell happened? Oh my God, I need to fast. Like, that's what women do. So if you see the scale going up slowly over time, I think that's a really good place to be. And then it's funny because men like want the opposite, right? They want to be bigger. It's such a strange difference there between male and female, but it's the same. I think men should also pay attention, but they're less like emotionally concerned about the number on the scale.
Right. And I do think that it shouldn't be your only goal, but one goal that comes with resistance training or building muscle is repairing your relationship with food.
Yeah.
I hate when people say food is fuel. I think that's a really triggering thing to say to someone who's been on diets their whole life and trying to lose weight. Like, it's like I see that all the time in like Facebook forums. It's like, you need to see food as fuel. It's like, trust me, I say that to myself, but like, I'm not on a weight loss journey right now. But I think when you start to truly build muscle and get stronger and you understand that it really, the calories in, calories out does have a big impact. But when you put more calories in than you're burning and you're using that to build muscle, like, it is fuel. And then you understand how that works. So I think it's a very long journey. It's a lot easier said than done. Mm-hmm. We are doing a full masterclass on this for our clients, just because it is really difficult to find that balance of eating the right amount of food without eating too much, without eating too little, without hating yourself, without also building muscle. Like, it's challenging, and this is why coaching is so popular. I have a coach right now to help me eat the amount of calories that I need and do the workouts that I need to hit my goals. So it's difficult, but understanding how food can impact your goals will really help kind of ease you off of diet culture. And it's like, it wasn't a perfunctory thing, ditch diets, build habits. Like, we didn't just come up with that one day. It's like we put a lot of thought into what we really believe in, and resistance training will really help free you from that hated relationship with food and help you ditch dieting for good.
Yeah, and if you're like me, who like I've been weightlifting for a long time now, but a large part of that I was not eating enough, and it was maybe not, I would say not fully intentional, but I could have tried harder to like eat more. Like, I kind of knew, and then you can lose muscle. If you're weightlifting your heart out. I was training 6 days a week doing body part splits, and I didn't see too much from that because what I was eating it was actually like my body was breaking down. as I was trying to build. And like that's also like a dicey relationship with performance and just wanting to be someone who works out a lot, but I wasn't really that honest with myself and my results because I wasn't ready to take that step of like actually eating enough and maybe taking more rest. I just wasn't ready, but I've matured and I see now, and that's what I want to help a lot of women with as well, is just understand that balance. Like a lot of women, I think, don't train hard enough, but some are training way too hard. So you kind of just need to also be honest about what you're currently doing. Are you getting results you want? If not, something has to change.
Yep. So as you can tell, setting appropriate goals, setting expectations with yourself, understanding what you really want is one of the most important things. It's actually not that complicated to build muscle, which will cover some of the most important steps. But it is really complicated emotionally. So make sure you understand what you really want. And I do just want to reiterate kind of one more time about body composition, because if you just simply lose weight, you might not look the way you want. And it's okay. Maybe you don't have an aesthetic goal and that's fine. But I think so many people don't understand that muscle is actually what shapes your body. So remember that as you go into deciding your goals for the year. If you are looking at yourself and you want to change things, that's totally okay, as long as you go about it in a healthy way. And I think building muscle is probably going to get you there, but you have to make sure it's what you want. Okay. So pick a goal, understand your goal. That's step one. Step two is very simple, but one of the most overlooked steps, which is schedule on your calendar 3 days a week. 4 is better. 2 is not ideal, but can kind of keep you at maintenance. 3 is where you should start. It's an achievable goal. We're talking 45 to 60 minutes at a gym or in your basement with weights or whatever it is. 3 hours roughly is enough to build muscle. I believe the science is, generally speaking, like 10 reps, 10 sets per muscle group. So like, let's just say biceps, which is something most people understand. If you did 3 or 4 sets of a bicep curl and then 3 or 4 sets of like a deadlift, which also uses your biceps, and then 3 or 4 sets of a row, now you're talking about 10 plus sets that have activated your biceps, which will increase your strength and or muscle growth. And so that's really all you need. It's not that hard, but you do have to make the time. And it's really easy every day to kick that can down the road. Monday's really busy and Tuesday, and then Wednesday I have plans, and all of a sudden it's Friday. And we hear this all the time from our clients. They're like, well, this week is shot. And it's like, well, wait a second. It's Friday. You could do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're good.
Yeah.
Or again, worst case scenario, you've scheduled the week and you missed one, but you're still at 2, which keeps you going into next week and not giving up and continuing to build your confidence. So don't overlook the importance of sitting down on a Sunday or a Monday and scheduling that time in your calendar before everything else pops up. Because it really is only 3 hours a week. It's not that hard if you make time for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what days I'm lifting. It's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and it doesn't deviate.
Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome. I have a workout buddy. We go every week. We schedule it a week in advance. He actually just bailed on me today, he had kid issues, but I'm still going. And, he'll probably go again tomorrow instead or something. And so scheduling it out really helps, especially if you have a full-time job, which is, I think, almost all of you. So don't overlook that. Another step is tracking progressive overload. I think everyone's familiar with this, but in order to build muscle or build strength, you need to do a little bit more than the week before. And if you lift weights, this is easily done by adding more weight from the week before. The problem with that mentality is people are always like trying to put more weight on. And this is something that I did early on. I was like, oh, I benched 100 pounds last week. I'm going to bench 120 this week. And like, it doesn't work that fast. We'll cover at the end, like expectations of how quickly your muscles are going to grow, but it's not going to be from 2 days ago. So you can't just add weight every time you go. And so writing down exactly what you did the week before and doing the same exercise again, even just 1% better, is important. So I'll give you an example. If I do we'll just do bicep curl again. If I do a bicep curl and I do 10 reps at 15 pounds, when I go back next week, to grab a 20-pound dumbbell is like a 40% increase or something. And like, that's not happening. But I can grab the 15-pound dumbbell again, and instead of doing 10 reps, I can do 12 or 15, or even just one more rep over the course of those sets. And if you are not tracking it, it's very easy to lose track of what you did the week before. And it's very easy to get demotivated as well because you feel like you've been lifting the same weight for weeks or months, which you very well might be, but it's hard to add weight each time.
Yeah, you need progressive overload in some way, especially like women. You're not going to like get super strong, especially in the upper body department. Like lateral raises, you may never go above 10 pounds for your entire life. But, you know, and there's just are some muscle groups that are just on the weaker side. You also need to just understand that about your body. But maybe you could change, add some tempo, like a hold at the top. Like there are 1,000 ways you can add some sort of intensity, whether it's just slowing down. Like I think that's a big one. People don't go slow enough. Like 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. Try that for 10, and it might be way harder than if you fly through it and you do 15. So there's like a lot of little things you can do to just make it harder.
FIT, F-I-T-T, is one of the acronyms for different ways you can progressive overload. Frequency, intensity, type, and time, I believe is what it is. So frequency is not usually the one I go to first for busy people. It's like, yes, you could go to the gym 7 days a week instead of 4, but that's difficult. And you also probably really sore and really drained. But intensity can be weight intensity. It can be lots of different ways, like challenging yourself in a different way, doing negatives, doing, you know, a push-up with a weight on your back instead of a regular push-up, all those types of things. And then type. I mean, that's something that I think is overlooked a lot. Is if you just do the same workout every week, which is totally fine, and you're progressing, that's great. But if you hit a plateau, and Kat, this is something we talk about in you coaching me, is like after 10 weeks, 12 weeks, doing the same workout, and I've kind of been doing these for years, like maybe it's time to switch it up. Maybe we do tempo work like you mentioned. Maybe we do a single leg lunge instead of, you know, with the barbell on my back, stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways to change the type of exercise as well to challenge your body in different ways. And then, of course, there's time. So can you do something quicker? And this is something we do in our challenges. How many push-ups can you do in 2 minutes? On your knees is fun too. And maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 100. It doesn't matter. The point is do that once a week and try to do a couple more. That's doing more push-ups in the same amount of time is also progression. So there's lots of ways to progress. Easiest way to do it is a couple more reps than the week before. That's why I like going to the gym. It's very mindless. I know that all I have to do is just do a little more than last week. But if you're working out in a basement or something, we've done this many times with clients. You don't have to belong to a gym. You just need to keep track of what you're doing so you can progress.
When I used to be full-time personal trainer, I would not take on a client who wanted to train once a week. I was like, that's not worth my time, not worth your time either. Twice is what we're doing. 3 times is magical. I would say 2 is good, 3 is great, 4 not needed. I noticed a huge difference between people who train 2 times a week versus 3. And then 3 or more, those are people who like the gym or are really intense about a specific goal. And that would usually be either they're like running a marathon or they have something like very specific they're trying to do, or they're an athlete, or they just love being there. But for the people who don't love being there but want to see results, 2 is fine, 3 is great if you can fit it in. But it doesn't need to be like, I would say 30 minutes you could get it done. 45 is great. Doesn't need to be an hour either.
Yep. So just to recap where we are so far, pick a goal that works for you, that you truly can stick with and aligns with your mentality. Schedule it and go weekly, 3 times a week from the expert here. Have an app, a notebook, something to track your progress. You don't have to do it forever, but at least for the first few months, if you're getting back into a routine, you need to keep yourself accountable with measuring that progress. And then eventually you can move away from it if you want. And then in terms of while you're there, you do need to push yourself a little bit. And I say push yourself a little bit. You don't need to go to epic failure. I think most people are just listening to this, not watching, but like imagine the crazy faces. I like to say the bros at the gym who are bench pressing and it looks like they're like trying to pass a kidney stone while pushing out their last rep. Like you don't need to do that. In fact, I wouldn't encourage it unless you're so sure that your form is good, because a lot of things can happen negatively when you do that. You can hurt yourself. You can recruit the wrong muscles, which is just building more imbalances. You really want to find the sweet spot of like, could I maybe do one more or maybe not? That's kind of where you want to land, but don't like be, red in the face, exploding, trying to get that last rep out. Would you agree with that, Kat?
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be safe. Like if you're trying to go to failure, it needs to be something that's safe to go to failure. Back squat, probably not. Bicep curl, who cares? That's that's why you need to like really understand like the safety of what you're trying to do. But yeah, I think a lot of women just don't try hard enough. And I think part of that is maybe mind muscle connection, you're just not paying attention, or you're just not there, you're not mentally there, you're going through the motions. But I think part of that is also like there's some sort of pain involved in going really hard. And I don't mean pain like something's wrong, but there's like a discomfort of that burn. Like when I tell you I don't like doing walking lunges, like that burn you feel by the end, that is where like the growth is happening. That's where like that's needed to make your muscles actually grow. And if we actually look back to like what makes muscles build, it's them breaking down. So you have to work them hard enough so they rebuild stronger. If you're never breaking down your muscles, you could also build like good endurance, muscular endurance that way, but you're not actually getting it to rebuild stronger. So there is that fine line, but I would always tell people if your form is good, go to as many reps as you can. If you're trying to build muscle, it should not be more than 12. I think like 8 to 10 is a nice place to be. Even 12 feels like a lot sometimes. But if it's a smaller muscle group, that's okay. But if it's like a bigger muscle group, even maybe 6 reps for some people is totally fine. But if you do 6 reps, it shouldn't feel like you could do 10. If that's the case, then you should do 10. So you just need to be aware of that. And if you feel like you can't, find out why. Is it like, oh, I'm nervous, I don't want to hurt myself, or this is feeling weird on my back when I do it that way? Like form is a big part of a reason like people can't get or lift heavy enough weights. So I think you always have to make sure form is good, which is hard when you're on your own and you don't know what you're doing. But that's where like videos, obviously, like if you worked with us, we have a trainer who takes videos for you. We have an app that has videos, but YouTube has a demo of every possible exercise on earth. So just pull that up and then maybe record yourself. It's awkward. No one likes doing that at the gym. But that's the best way to know like if your deadlift actually looks good or looks terrible. Like you're not going to know when you're doing it.
There is one of the best ways you can spend your money if you don't have any idea what you're doing in the gym is to hire a trainer even for a little bit. Yeah. Should you hire a trainer forever? Like, sure, that'd be great if you can afford it. But if not, like hire one for a couple weeks, get comfortable with a barbell, get comfortable with your form. They're not all created equal. I think Kat doesn't even train anymore. She's not affordable enough, but no, I'm kidding. But find a good one if you can, like a recommendation from a friend or something. That will really help. Just make sure you know what you're doing. And then, yes, of course, in our program, we cover a lot of that too. But that will remove some of that discomfort too of like what is going to failure, if that helps. If you're in the Bay Area, shout out to the Yard. They have their barbell basics class every like quarter or so. And it is like a lot of women too, which I love to see. It's usually coached by women too. So that's great. Like it really builds that comfort of I know what I'm doing pretty quickly, so you can go to the gym regularly.
Yeah, and I know personal trainers are expensive, but let's say you hired a trainer for the intent to use them 15 times, and you also told them, hey, I'm only doing this for this. Teach me everything I need to know regarding form. Like they will be happy to help you with that. I did that for people, like people especially who worked out a lot on their own, but were like, I just need a set of eyes. Like I used to have a trainer for a long time myself. It wasn't because I couldn't do it. It's because like I wanted a set of eyes on me to point out the things that I'm not seeing for myself. And, that's just a good way to also keep you motivated, obviously, because they expect you to show up to the gym. But there's nothing wrong with using a trainer for like a little kickstart. But they're definitely not the answer. As a trainer, they're not the answer, because if I spend 2 hours a week with someone and we have the best workout and everything's perfect, what they're doing for all those other hours of those 7 days can completely negate any progress we could make in the gym. I think people could get strong. I've definitely seen people get stronger over time, but not necessarily body recomp or really lose weight or achieve the things they want because they're not doing all the other stuff like eat protein or sleep. Like there's so many. We could get into like a million things, but we're not going to focus on that as much today. But just the point is like you also need to do other things to get the results you're looking for.
That's right. You've said on a previous podcast, people can work out for years and years and never see results. And I think that hits really hard with a lot of people. And that was my story, which is partly what led me to you. Even though I knew a lot about fitness at the time, nothing was really changing. And so we're going to cover this. It's a good segue to the next topic, which is protein, which is we only have time to cover so much in this episode about nutrition. Like we have a a massive program that we've put years of research and development into, where we coach people for months. We put out content every week. We do trainings, podcasts. Like, nutrition is complicated. We're not just going to tell you everything you need to know in the next 2 minutes about what to eat if you're trying to build muscle. But there is one that is so important, and that is protein. And so, Kat, you want to cover like maybe rule of thumb for how much, as well as why it's so important with strength training?
Yeah, so protein are basically amino acids that help, support muscle health, build muscle tissue. You will not build muscle if you're not eating enough protein. Some people can get away with eating less and they do fine. Some people need more. But a good rule of thumb, if you're trying to build muscle, would be 1 gram or 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. So it can be a range. It doesn't need to be, super dead on. You could be kind of like higher some days, lower, but you generally need to have a good minimum in mind to try to hit. And around 30 grams of protein per meal is a good sweet spot to make sure you're getting enough protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, which is the whole process that needs to happen in order for you to build muscle, but it also helps regulate your blood sugar, energy levels, like all sorts of really good things. So you do need to be eating protein throughout the day and enough each day. I think that's pretty straightforward, but it does need to be from good quality protein sources. Animal-based proteins will get you a lot further than the plant-based ones, but you could do it on a plant-based diet. It's just a little trickier when it comes to finding complete proteins and making sure you're getting enough nutrients in there. But if you're eating meat, then it's pretty easy, especially with lean proteins like tuna, chicken breast, yogurt, to get your protein up. But you need to be eating enough protein in order for muscle to build. And just remember that your body is only building muscle while you're sleeping. So you also need to make sure you're getting enough rest so the protein can do its job. You can't really hack that. That's a big part of the muscle building process. But if you are getting enough protein, then I do think calories, carbs, and fats don't matter quite as much if you don't want to really think about those things. If you have a specific fat loss goal, then yes, your total calories will matter more. But again, we're here talking about building muscle, so you should probably be at maintenance or a little bit of a surplus. So maybe multiplying your body weight by 15, that could be a good benchmark as far as calories go. Protein is really important, but there's one thing I do want to mention that is not related to food, but I think is super important, is that women and your menstrual cycle does play a big role in your lifting. So I just don't want to let this podcast end before addressing the fact that different months or different weeks of the month you're going to feel terrible, and some days you're going to feel really strong. I don't think women need to cycle their workouts in relation to their menstrual cycle. That's a whole thing. Fine if you want to do that. Really complicated if that was up to me. But just know you are strongest in your follicular phase and around ovulation. You're really strong then. You're going to have more energy. And then once you ovulate, luteal phase, you're going to feel some energy dips. And then the week of your period, you might not even want to enter the gym. And I think that's also okay. But you could still go through the motions, but you need to scale back either the weights you're using or the intensity. I personally do that. If I'm not feeling up to it, I'll still do things, but I do adjust based on how I feel. So you don't want to also override how your body's feeling. You're going to be bloated, cranky, energy levels are terrible, but if you go and do something light, you're going to feel a lot better. If you don't go at all, you might feel worse. So just know that will happen. That's to be expected, but it won't impact your muscle building results if you're still hitting it hard and trying all those other days of the week.
Thank you. There's a couple more pieces that are crucial. One is that people always say, muscles are grown in the gym or whatever, and they're actually not. Your muscles actually grow at night. Mm-hmm. So HGH, which I feel like was a running joke in the 90s with athletes, human growth hormone is one of the big things that stimulates muscle growth, and that happens at night, as does repairing your glycogen stores, as does all of the other processes that happen at night with blood flow and oxygen and everything. And so you really need to be getting quality sleep. Thankfully, your favorite coaches just did a podcast on sleep last week. So if you're having trouble with sleep, make sure you listen to that. But you can be eating all the protein in the world and pushing yourself at the gym. And if you're not getting enough sleep, you might not be seeing the results that you want. So again, back to the wellness triangle. Try your best to do all three. You're never going to be perfect at all three, but you do need to be making an effort in all three. Sleep is so important for building muscle and getting stronger.
Definitely. And don't neglect your weak points. If you're lifting and something's not feeling right, maybe a little pinchy pain, something's not going well, that's your body telling you like, hey, I need some extra attention here. So that's a good thing to focus on. For a lot of people, core can be weak. And if you start lifting heavy, too heavy, your weak core is going to catch up with you with like a back injury or something you don't want to happen. So that's also why we don't recommend pushing the weights too hard. Like, don't go for a 1 rep max every week. I used to love that. It's not helping. And it can just like exacerbate any underlying injuries or imbalances you may have. So that's a whole nother piece that makes this a lot more like complicated. But I do think like injury can be normal when you're lifting weights, but you just need to ask yourself, like, why is this happening? What is my body telling me? And that kind of brings us to mobility, which I think is our last pillar of what's really important when it comes to resistance training.
That's right. And if you're not familiar, it's just kind of a fancy term for taking care of your muscles, working on stretching, although stretching is honestly my like least favorite part of mobility. I feel like it's least important. Stretching, but also working through muscle imbalances, tightness, things like that. Trigger points is a term that you'll hear a lot. Anytime you feel something's tight and you need to loosen it. My favorite thing to do for mobility is to do it at night in front of the television. It's probably best done at your gym on a mat with all of the equipment that they have. But if you're busy, you can do what I do and what we coach a lot of our clients on, which is just maximize your time in the gym for stuff you can't do elsewhere. Do the barbells, do the weights, do the kettlebells, the sleds, whatever you don't have at home, and then you can do your mobility at home. But you don't just not do it. Don't say you're going to do it at home and then not. Because if your neck is stiff or one side of your body is not working as well as it should, and your scaps aren't gliding, whatever, there's a lot of issues that can occur. You will start to compound those injuries, and you will get to the point where you can't work out at all anymore. And so I think mobility is incredibly overlooked, and it will prevent injuries, which just sucks in general. No one wants to wake up with a hurt back or sore upper trap or anything like that, but it also will just continue to have your body functioning optimally, so you will continue to build strength.
Flexibility is not mobility. Stretching is also not mobility. I guess we could kind of work it in there, but mobility is like your ability to get your body in a specific range of motion, like on your own, not pushing it there, right? I could go into a split right now because I'm using the floor to help me get there, but I can't stand and bring my leg up overhead. That's where mobility is different. And a lot of people will stretch and do all that stuff, but that's not necessarily mobility. But you can work mobility into your lifts. That's what I do a lot, like deep knee bends, like really, trying to get in specific ranges of motion, which also means you have to go lighter. But also, the deeper stretch you get on a muscle, the more you're probably going to build. That's why a single leg deadlift like annihilates your glutes. You'll get really sore, but you're getting a huge stretch when you do that exercise. So that's what's happening there. Anytime you're really stretching the muscle, you can build muscle. Like there was a fun study where these guys just stood in like a calf stretch for like 1 minute on, 1 minute off. They just held the stretch and they built their calves. Like they did not work their calves. They just held the stretch. And like that kind of goes to show that stretch and lengthened position is really important to get to. Also when you're working out, doing your lifts or not on your own time, like that's really beneficial stuff for like your body and overall health.
Love it. Foam rollers are less than $20 on Amazon. Lacrosse balls are like $1. I personally don't think you need to go buy the Trigger Point branded balls with the little spikes on them because they're like $40. Or the, God forbid, the like vibrating massager foam rollers that are like $200. I don't know, Kat, you could disagree, but I don't think it's worth the money right now. I think just buy a lacrosse ball and do it regularly, a few nights a week, if not every night. Yes, and you can stretch, but I don't want to hate on stretching, and we're not physical therapists, but I just think so many people rely on stretching. I think it's a kind of a myth of how important that is for mobility, and it's really not. And, if I had a nickel for every time my friend is like, my low back hurts, I've been stretching it, and I'm just like, don't do that. Yeah. Your low back hurts for lots of other reasons. It could be your glutes, it could be your core, like stop stretching your lower back. And so I would say like, if you are in pain or you're trying to avoid pain, stretching's probably not your best friend. I think a lacrosse ball is going to get you a lot farther, as well as proper warm-ups and proper, exactly what you said, Kat, just like activating the right muscles during your workouts. I do some really funny looking movements at the gym, like in between sets and stuff, like deep breathing and standing on one leg and, activating my thoracic back and stuff. Like that's what really will help you from getting hurt, is just moving optimally. So you don't need to be an expert on that, but if something's tight, jam a lacrosse ball into it. Unless it's a bone, it's probably going to help you release some of that tension.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Cool.
I stretch, but I'm stretching because I enjoy it and it feels good, and I'm watching TV, and I like to be on the floor. I think being on the floor is like good grounding, but I'm not doing that because I think it's going to like really move the needle in any direction. It's just kind of like a nice ritual I do to like relax at the end of the day.
That's
so
right.
If you're doing it that's totally fine, but just don't think you're doing anything like really that amazing.
And yoga is often very dynamic. Like a lot of the flows are dynamic stretching, so that's fantastic. And Pilates, same thing too. You're targeting a lot of individual muscle groups. So like if you want to go at this with 110%, go to the gym 2-3 times a week, push yourself, do some recovery with yoga or Pilates. Like you'll feel really good. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you to work out 6 days a week, because that's not realistic, probably. Although it does feel good. Last thing I want to cover is expectations. So it depends. How much are you eating? How hard are you pushing yourself? How much of an expert are you? Have you been weight training for a long time versus are you new? A good rule of thumb that I like, and Kat, I'd love your opinion on this too, is 2 to 3. So 2 to 3 weeks is what you can expect to see with cardiovascular gains. If you start running, in 2 to 3 weeks, you will be faster, more aerobic, et cetera, at running. And so this is why people can train for a marathon in like 10 weeks, 12 weeks. Go from, couch to 5K in a few weeks, as it says. Muscles a lot longer. It's 2 to 3 months is what you should expect. Yeah. Again, generally speaking. And so it can be challenging to start this plan and do everything right and go to the gym 3 days a week, and you're a month in and you're like, nothing's happened. My body looks exactly the same. This is, again, why tracking progress is helpful, because if you're doing all of the right things, you should be getting stronger pretty much every time you go. Not a lot, but a little bit, and that can keep you motivated. But it will happen eventually, and then the benefit is it goes both ways. So if you hurt, I've been injured, and I lose my aerobic capacity very quickly. I ran a half marathon like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And like my pace was sick. And it's like, I can't even jog to save my life right now because I'm not doing a lot of cardio. Whereas like some of the muscle that I built when I was 25 is like, that's still going. I'm still building on that foundation. And so it is beneficial that it takes so long, because it also takes a long time to lose it. And so remember that progress is here to stay. Kat, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you really should be lifting for like almost years before you really see body composition change. You can see it faster if you're really regimented on what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, fine. But if you're someone like me, who in the past, like I was just like lifting, I liked it, but you see years later, I'm like, wow, my body shape has really changed, but that was so slow. But it's more like I also lift because I like it. It's part of my lifestyle. So what am I going to look like in 10 years? I'm kind of excited because like I'm not going to stop. I'm definitely not going to stop lifting. It's one thing you can do until you get like really old, is keep resistance training. So that's my plan. But it's like, I hope that my body composition only like gets better as I get older. So that's kind of the mentality I have, is like, you just have to keep going, and then year after year, you're going to be like really happy to see. Also, it's just really easy to maintain a leaner frame if it's just part of your day-to-day routine and you're doing it multiple times a week. You could eat more carbs, you could tolerate them. Like it really transforms everything. That also can build towards a physique that you are really looking for. But yeah, the results are slow, and that's just because building muscle is slow. And that's why people who are fit are more rare these days, because it does take time. There's a discipline there. It's not necessarily the most easy thing. It's very easy to not work out and, sit on the couch all the time. But to get to the gym, like those are people who are, prioritizing something. They have a goal, they're working hard, and then they see results from it. So you just have to stick with it. I don't think you have to love it. It's great if you do, but I think you have to love how it makes you feel, and that will keep you going. Maybe you hate going to the gym and you don't like the people there, but if you feel good after, there you go. Like that's why you're doing it. So always keep that in mind.
That's right. And have no fear, because we're going to help you with all of this. One of my favorite phrases that applies to our coaching program, but also our challenges, or really any commitment, in the health space is you need enough thrust to get out of the atmosphere. If you are stuck in a pattern that isn't working for you, it's very hard to break that pattern. But it doesn't mean that you're going to feel the way you feel today forever. In a month or a couple months, you can completely transform your habits and your motivation. And so maybe you absolutely despise going to the gym right now and you just can't fathom the idea of doing it 3 days a week. You just need enough thrust to get out of the atmosphere. Don't worry about doing it 3 days a week for the rest of your life. Just worry about building that habit slowly, and we're going to help you. So we are running a challenge, and it's going to be 4 weeks, and it's going to be pretty much everything we talked about here, full accountability from beginning to end of all of the steps that I'm about to recap. And it's for the cost of less than one session with a personal trainer, which, Kat, to be honest, I think we should charge more for it, but whatever. We've already decided. And we're going to guarantee strength gains. That's how confident we are this is going to work. If you show up and do the work that we provide for you in our app, with workouts, with measurable progress, with access to our coach Alexa, who's amazing, with diet tips throughout, you will get stronger and you will start to build that habit. And if you don't, you'll get your money back. So you have nothing to lose. So you can go click on the link in our bio, or you can DM Kat or myself the word challenge, and we will send you more info on our strength training challenge. But it is just 4 weeks to completely transform and get you building this habit for the rest of your life. There's really no reason not to do it. And I'm walking the walk right now. Kat, we're on a plan together. I'm going to put my results on Instagram so far, which we just hit 4 weeks at the end of January. And I have some progress to show.
Nice.
You know, it's not life changing, but like it's noticeable in terms of how much I'm lifting and body comp. And so I want to put it out there. I hate exposing myself like that on Instagram. I think it's like sometimes plays into the diet culture a little bit, but I want people to feel motivated that it's possible in just 4 weeks to actually see change. And so I'm putting my money where my mouth is too, and come join us in this challenge. It's going to be fun.
Hell yeah. Let's get jacked.
Let's do it. Kat, anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I hope to see you guys in the challenge, especially if you're like on the fence of like, ooh, I want to learn a little bit more, but I'm scared. Like, this is the exact thing you should be doing. We are the most approachable coaches. We are not, scary people asking you to do anything crazy. This will be very attainable and doable. So would love to see you guys there.
Love it. All right. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Andrew Hayes Life. You can find Kat at Kat Best Wellness. You can DM either of us the word challenge or click on the links in our bio to sign up for the challenge. And you can also join our incredible Alta Life community on WhatsApp. And the link for that is in the show notes or also in our bios. And we'll see you in the weight room, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Have a good one.